I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Yes, Director Strange.
Here.
Director Ratterman.
Here.
President Davidson.
Here.
Director Thomas.
Here.
And Director Engel.
Here.
Second item on the agenda is public comment. This time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. Public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Is there any public comment?
Good
Hello there.
morning, President Davidson and members of the board. What I want to comment on is on the consent agenda, and since public can't pull consent agenda, and I'm not sure anybody of the board will pull the item that I want to talk about, actually 2 items, that this is my only option. The first thing I want to mention is on the accounts receivable that are being written off. If staff could please put a W, an S, or a C by the account number so we could sort of figure out whether it's water, sewer, or a combo account that's being written off. That might help us to figure out maybe which one of those departments are causing the most to be written off, if we knew what it was instead of just an account number. The second item is on the secretarial summary, where 11 new computers were purchased. What I would really like to know is what happened to the old computers. Because if they haven't been destroyed, the county library system would love them, because your computers are absolutely new compared to their antiques in their branches. And that's it.
Okay.
That's a great question, Vicki. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to the, is there any other public comment? We'll move on now to the consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed for later discussion. 3A, review board director's monthly time sheets. 3B, ratified claim summary. Number 543. 3C, report on the write-off of uncollectible accounts receivable for the period of December 1st through 2016 through May 31st, 2017. And D, quarterly engineering report. Do I have a motion for acceptance?
I'd like to pull item 3C, please.
All right. Can I get a motion for acceptance of 3A, B, and
I'd like to pull item 3B.
3B?
3B. B as in boy.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept 3A and 3D.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept item 3A and 3D. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 3C, Director Underhill.
Yeah. Thomas.
No, that was me,
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Thomas.
Director Underhill Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Under Thomas.
Under Thomas. I want to acknowledge what Ms. Mills, her comment about the identifying those items as sewer, water, or a combination. That would be good. And I also observed that the posting date looks like it's all relatively new, and which kind of confuses me, because if it's a 2-month-old posting, it doesn't seem like that there's been much time spent collecting it. I mean, I could be dead wrong about it. It might be 5 years old, but it's just posted two months ago to this.
Yeah, what does the posting date signify? Is that what you're asking?
Right. So maybe Jeff could answer the last question first. What does the posting date signify?
So, well, I'm going to go back to, if you don't mind, to Ms. Mills' comment, and yes, we can go ahead and put water, sewer, and combine down to be able to track it. This particular write-off is done every 6 months. So the previous one was June through November 2016. We look at those that are uncollectible, that have not been paid, and then we turn around and we send them to collections. The last time this was in front of your board, we actually had a little over $25,000 worth of write-offs. 2 of them required your approval because they were over $25,000. This year we do, this time we do not. So what, we have anything over $2,500, this is just for information. It does not require your approval. We do look at everything within this time frame. Some of these accounts are perpetual. So we know that we run into the issues. Some of them, it could be a change in ownership as well. We have occasions where banks buy properties, they have it in their name and they turn around and sell it, yet they don't pay off the bill. So we have to send it to collections.
Okay, well, this is the first time that I've seen this activity, so excuse me for being
Certainly.
Vague on it, or a little gray area.
Yeah.
But am I to assume that all of these things have been attempted to be collected by a collection agency, and there's been no success? Is that
Actually, these are going to a
going to
collection agency.
Okay, so we're not, we will get, hopefully, some percentage of this would be collected by the
I
agency.
think it said about 8.5% was the.
Yeah, somewhere in there. The process, we have to write them off on our books, and then we send them to collections.
Okay.
So as soon as it goes to collections, they're off our books as bad debt.
Okay, what happened to Luigi?
Just as a footnote, our bad debt expense has been going down as the economy has picked up. So we're doing a little bit better.
Hey, you can always start a collection agency.
He joined forces with Guido, and they're working Sacramento County heavy right now.
You know, I think a lot of people, you know, so, I mean, I would, it would just as an information, I mean, what happens a lot of times in foreclosure, somebody will be in the property, they're, you know, they end up losing the house, they haven't made their payments for quite some time. They're off the premises, and then the bank will take it over, but the bank won't change their, they won't come over to us and say, hey, we're gonna be good people, we want to start paying the water and sewer bill, which, you know, it's, as far as I'm concerned, is criminal, but, and that debt will continue with the people who are being kicked out of the house, because the bank won't change it, and those people could come in and I guess I think they have to be current to actually get off the books, which I don't know if that's the right theory or not, but so many of these, the people haven't been in the home for 6 or 8 months, and then the bank just carries it, and it ends up accumulating to something that no one's gonna pay.
Okay.
As far as our rules and regulations concerned, the current owner is not responsible for any prior owner's bills. So there are sometimes when houses change hands, you do run into that issue.
Okay. Well, don't misunderstand, I'm not questioning your, the way that you've been properly handling this. I'm just asking the questions for my own education.
Certainly. And yes, these are going to go to collections, the collection company, as soon as we go through this process.
Okay, excuse me, I have one question or comment, and you answered it a few minutes ago when you said the last time we saw this, it was 25,000?
Yes.
And I'd like to see something, an indication of, you know, I'm a process kind of person, what happened last time or a year ago or...
Okay. What we could do within this report is we could provide a historical summary, so you can see what the
Because you have it
trends are.
right there, right.
Certainly, yes, we can do that.
Okay, unless there's any other comments, I'd like to move for approval on C, or 3C.
Are there any other comments?
Well, yeah, I do have a question, and that is there, so how do we go about collecting, or maybe we don't then, with, as Jeff said, this scenario where there's a foreclosure, that home property changes hands. There's no way that we could kind of do something with the escrow account or something on that to get, so that the new buyer pays for none of that
No,
stuff, Alvin? Just
unfortunately
SOL.
not.
You can't require the new purchaser or whoever took it over to pay the bath.
For the previous, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
that's against the law.
But the issue is, a lot of times after they've been foreclosed on, the bank will own the house and not turn it over, and the payments are still being billed to the previous owner, which is, so it compounds this, you know, and I wish there was a method where we could just say, look, I've been foreclosed on, stop, you know, because if they ever want to clear their credit up, they haven't even been in the house, and yet their debt to us gets bigger, makes it more difficult for them to try to clear it up. You know, I've had, you know, I don't get a lot of calls, but I do get calls about that, and and we've tried statewide to get legislation and change, but the banking industry, it's just too, you know, they're not going to change it.
Jeff, you use the term perpetual on some of these. Can at some point in time, we just shut it off so I don't know. I interpreted the word perpetual as it continues every month, every month, every month. Maybe you just meant something different.
There are times where we have some account holders that are delinquent. They go through reminder notice, they go through lock-offs, they come back on, back and forth, back and
Gotcha.
forth. That's kind of some of those that we see, the perpetual accounts. And we're trying and we're working with ways to make it easier for them to pay. Paymentus is one. We reach out to them, tell them that they can make monthly payments instead of just waiting for the 2-month bill. So there's ways we reach out to those, but there are some customers that it's just habitual for them to fall into that pattern.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any public comment on this item? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, this is for item 3C. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 3B.
Okay, just to comment on Vicki Mills' sort of further, her comment, that's a good idea, I think, to see if there's an opportunity to reuse our computers. Also on the list is some laptops, and I'm not quite sure that $7,000 is for software for the laptops, or are they new laptops as well? That's on, the computers are on 3 of 7, about 2/3 of the way down the page, $11,000. And then the laptops are on page 4, about $7,900, about halfway down the page. It's laptops, there's 4 of them, switch/backup. Are those new laptops?
They are new laptops.
And is there a way
And there's some, we in perpetual shortage of laptops, so we recycle them internally to have some as backups for our own. If one happens to go down, we have those available internally.
Okay, are we switching out any computers? Are we discarding computers? Is there a way of wiping them clean and donating them? Is that a possibility?
Anything we would have in that regard of an older computer would be surplused, as my understanding, wouldn't we, Jeff? Wouldn't we go
Yeah.
through the process of surplusing it and offering that up to other local agencies? I believe is the process we'd use.
We do have some items that can go through the surplus process, and we're going to be looking at vehicles, surplusing some vehicles upcoming. And computers is one that can be offered, we can clean them. Laptops are generally something that we do have to keep more up to date, because some of them are used in SCADA, and some of them are for the operators to have at their homes, because they have to be available 24/7. So we have those, and we keep some of those up to date more frequently than some of the others. So I don't know if there's much of an opportunity on the laptops, but definitely the desktops, we can go ahead and look
Historically,
at.
what have we done? What is our process? I mean, last year before, the last time we bought computers, what did we do with them?
Recycle them.
Okay, we turn them in?
No, we turn them over to a recycler.
Okay,
We remove the hard drives and just send them off to recycling.
okay. So is there an opportunity to change our policy in that regard?
We can look at it, and it's just a matter of, because some of our computers are quite old and the operating systems are not current. And that's why we swap these out with newer operating systems, because they don't meet the needs of our servers and some of the other systems we run. But if we can find somebody who can utilize an old Windows per se, and an old, it wouldn't be an old Excel or Microsoft, because we strip those off and to carry over the license to the new computers. But it would be some of the old operating systems and see if it's something that they can utilize, but we can certainly look into that.
And to surplus them?
And surplus it,
Okay.
yes.
This issue actually just came up with a conversation I had with Bob Dean about the RCD. They need access to a computer, and that was the same, I was already thinking about it for that, but if we can provide that to other, local agencies like the library or the RCD, I would be thrilled to do that if it's something they can use. Some of these are older, and like Jeff said, but again, they may be happy to get them, and if we can provide it to them, yeah, let's do it for sure.
Okay.
Bob doesn't still have one from here?
Should we call Luigi? Yeah.
He's probably got a couple.
That's a cheap shot.
All right, that's all I got.
They're not as cheap as you might think.
I move
I'll
for
bet you there's
accept,
at least a 70% chance he does.
Go ahead.
I move for acceptance on 3B.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, in relationship to the dam fees by the Department of Water Resources, I see it, it varies from, 44,000 down to 4,800. What, is it all based upon storage capacity? I imagine that's a division of dam safety or something?
Yes, and if you look at that, there's a number of factors, and I'm not an expert in this area, I apologize.
No problem.
But yes, you're looking at a number of things, because if you look at McKay's and New Spicer, obviously part of that's capacity
Right.
and the inspections required and so forth. It is a significant cost, but if you see that, the items listed under as an A next to it, if you go to page 2, it does say expenditures to be reimbursed from other agencies.
Oh, okay. Does it mention at what percent, or is that 100% reimbursement?
100%.
Okay.
And when I mean page 2, not page 2 of the 2 of 7, the second page within the total claim summary, after the,
Oh. Sorry here.
Dam fees are one of those things that's probably increased. Any estimate fourfold?
I believe their increase was estimated at about 7% for this coming year.
Just for this year, I'm just talking about, historically, in the last 10 years.
I have not tracked that, but I can come back and let you know
That's
what the annual increases have been.
All right, any other questions on the claim summary?
Robbery.
Any other questions on the claim summary? Any public comment on the claim summary? We have a motion and a second, correct? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to public hearing, discussion, action regarding adoption of the fiscal year 2017-18 operating and capital improvement plan budget. So do we have to formally open the public hearing, or how's the process for that? Okay, so we will open the public hearing. And I just want to mention for everybody out there that we're getting ready to adopt our budget perhaps, and there is one person from the public in the audience. Which is a shame. No, that's not, no,
a shame we have
it's a
one.
shame there's only one.
Get out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vicki, for being here.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I do want to follow up on what you had just mentioned. President Davidson, is that not knowing how many people of the public would be here, I prepared a presentation for public consumption. However, since I've talked this to death, I think I'm going to just highlight 3 slides. I'll make it 4.
Why?
That would be the will of the board.
That's what I anticipated. Why 4 slides?
We've already, are these 4 slides that
I
we've
don't-
seen? Are they new slides?
Well, I think when you look at the proposed budget, I just wanted to show you what has been some major changes in what we call in the budget itself. Because some of these is moving expenses around from one category to another, and some of them has been increasing the budget amount. But here is what we're looking at. The per side fund, just to review, it went from benefits down to loans, debt service, service maintenance contracts. As you can see, we did increase it. We're now entering our arc flash assessments process, which is required by law and by our insurance companies. JPI, insurance company, JPIA, they did a risk assessment, and we do have issues. This is pertaining to our electrical systems. And we also have a one-time cost for a raw water pump replacement in Lake Tulloch. We're going to do maintenance and roofs and gutters in our facilities. And also at the Jenny Lynn Training Center, we're going to repair some of the siding and repaint and do some work on the roof and gutters. This is just ongoing maintenance that we want to maintain our facilities, because in addition to our treatment plants and everything else, we have a lot of other buildings that we want to make sure we maintain, because they too have to be available in perpetuity. The pre-funding portion of retiree health was moved out of services and supplies into benefits. We've increased lab services for additional testing. Teresa Tanaka addressed that at the last meeting. Outside legal costs have decreased because Matt's decided to give up his raise. Actually, this is for some of the legal water rights. And this is in relationship to budget last year, not necessary to actual, because we overestimated what our water rights legal fees would be in the water resources budget. Reduced water resources professional services by $40,000. This is the John Mills contract. We went from 120 to 80, and it's all on your agenda today. And then this is near and dear to Director Radaman's heart. Our property liability and general insurance costs lowered by $25,000 because our experience level was reduced. So this is just a summary of things I've mentioned before. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, back under service maintenance contracts, you said that, of course, we have repairs that have to be done to district-wide.
Yes.
Are we making use of we did have at one time a construction crew specifically to do repairs?
Yes, we do. We still have a construction group, and right now they're working on the Blue Bell water line distribution line replacement in Valley Springs. So that's where it's most advantageous for us to self-perform as opposed to hiring outside contractor to do it. We would utilize them.
Okay, so that is making a difference in the fact that it could have been higher.
I would expect that's probably the case, and that of course there's materials involved as well.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah, that would be a benefit to us to access them.
And Director Underhill, we also look at the skill set required to do the job. For the roofing, obviously you want a roofing contractor to come in and do that work. So those are the things we look at.
Question then, could we go in more, or provide more information on that decrease of 71,000 for water rights services? Obviously, water rights and the protection of water rights are one of my most important reasons for being up here. So what does that mean? Is that just a situation where we, like you say, over budgeted last year? We're not, so there really won't be a reduction in needed services for that, or?
I could just tell you, Director Strange, we would not recommend a budget to you that underfunded our effort on water rights protection. Obviously, you know, I share your passion for that. That's in my mind, one of our most important underlying assets that makes it possible for us to be here today. So we wouldn't do that. You know, we're in the process. We have the applications filed with the state board, the extension of our water rights in the Stanislaus. We have other water right issues, you know, in the Calaveras and McCollum that we're working on as well. It's some of it is just kind of the expectation on the timeline of when these things will, as the work progresses, when we're going to see, you know, a need to invest more on outside resources to help in that process. So some of these things we've gotten in the queue with the State Water Board. Work is happening now, but they're not going to be at a point where, you know, that's going to ramp up before the board in this coming year. It'll be beyond that. So I think what we're doing is just trying to be really as accurate as we can on forecasting where we need to spend the money on the water rights effort. But the reality is, and this is something we're analyzing closely in our development of our 5-year financial plan, and what you'll see in the financial analysis that will be coming to you next month, is really recognizing that all of the issues around the water rights and funding that, and now we see the expansion of that, you know, in a different direction, but very important on the groundwater management stuff as well,
Right.
is something that we're going to have a growing, it's going to be a growing part of our budget. It has to be. It's just too important.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's very important to realize it will be a growing part of our budget that, you know, along with everything else that we're going to have to balance. So,
The 71,000 that Director Strange is talking about, that's a reduction from last year?
From budget.
From
The
budget
budgeted
last
amount.
year?
Right. And
And
when
and
Peter,
my question is, was there an uptick last year and we're back down to normal, or?
I think it was more because coming into last year, that was right after we had filed for the extension on the water rights, and you know, a lot of the things we're developing with the Sigma was just being put into place, the groundwater law. So a lot of things were in, and Peter was, you know, still relatively new in his position, and trying to estimate, okay, what kind of resources did we need, a bench of resources to provide to him and his effort on water resources. And so I think now with a year of experience and knowing how the process on each of these efforts is progressing, I think we have a better sense that this more accurately reflects where we're going to be in the coming year.
just as a footnote, there's still $121,000 in Peter's account for outside legal services. And to follow up what Dave said, there's a number of projects, especially in Water Resources Department, where it's cyclical. There's sometimes we'll have the Urban Water Management Plan due, so we have to put more money into mandated plans. And then the next year there's no plan due, so obviously the budget will go down for that. And we're trying to match the needs in this particular year for the services that we're going to require for this particular year. It's not always an indicator of what it's going to be in subsequent years. And we match the budget with the needs. It would be nice to be able to have a level amount, but unfortunately that would also reserve dollars that may not be used that we're going to need elsewhere, and balancing the budget is difficult at best.
But I think that, you know, this is, again, every time we've met in the last, you know, this year, it seems like things keep being brought forward that remind me how valuable our financial analysis study is that's ongoing, because it allows us to really look at it, our efforts related to water rights on a 5-year scale, which I think is an appropriate time frame on some of our biggest efforts that we're underway right now, and we can really try to get a clear picture of what the cumulative financial needs are to properly and successfully achieve that.
I have a question on water rights. Aqua keeps an eye on the state as far as, you know, any changes that they have, and there's certainly, you know, you being a representative in Aqua will certainly let us know if there's going to be any kind of infringement on our water rights, so that we would be prepared to take that on, and with the help of our lawyer.
That's a great point, Director Arndale. That's something we're doing right now. It's
Oh.
part of the effort on the long-term conservation requirements is to protect our water rights and make sure that the conserved water is water that we continue to have control over and the ability to use in the future as we're supposedly assured under the existing law of the
Right,
state of
right.
California. So, yeah, that's one of the really important efforts through Aqua is to make sure that we protect ourselves. It's one of our probably our main issue from this region, Region 3 of Aqua, is protection of the priority of our water rights, since we do have the, some of the most senior rights, and also area of origin protections and other things that matter.
Well, I think it's a real challenge when you have a budget like that goes up and down,
Yes.
because we don't see that in a lot of other, salaries, all these other things. I mean, that just goes up and up and up and up. So managing something like that,
It is difficult because you have to have more than a one-year view, as Dave was mentioning. You have to be able to see what the trends are going to be in the future. And one of our challenges is to match our revenues, and one of the things on the ongoing challenges we have is trying to find a way to do revenue predictability.
Right.
And when you're trying to predict your revenues in future years, when you know you're going to have up and down in certain areas. Now, Peter's program tends to be the one where we're going to see most of the up and down, because he does a lot of the mandated reports and the water rights and so forth. A lot of the other departments are fairly static. You can do looking at each of the different items and kind of predict where they're going to go as far as chemical use, as far as paper use, as far as outside vendors for services when we look at software licenses and things like that. They're fairly predictable. But when you're looking at items, even when the board in your budget, I work with Mona to look at when the election cycle is going to be. So we go up and down there, and it's all related to the election cycle. So those are the challenges, Director Strange, and you're correct.
and I would throw in here again, when we're dealing with our FERC relicensing, Peter's budget is gonna go out of, this building.
Well,
I mean, it's huge, so.
We talked about that, and I mean, we're going to be discussing, we're going to have that study session coming up. And
Yes.
But we need to have a completely different source for that, and something that we have to start, putting money away now. I mean,
Yeah.
they're similar, but I think that they're ultimately, and I'm asking Dave, they're going to be separate line items.
What we're going to bring to you in August, when we have the study session, is information about the scope and the costs associated with relicensing efforts that have happened around us and other agencies similarly situated to us, just to get a real sense of that. But then and then the accompanying item that we're going to have for you on that agenda is also going to be a request to create a reserve fund so that we can begin to do exactly what you're talking about and to make the investment now towards that effort, because we're going to be into that effort, spending money on that effort by 2022. We need 10 years at least to get through all of the analysis that we're going to have to do. And so it's and frankly, the way I've thought about it, and talked to Jeff about it, I think we've really got to look at it like the management of a capital asset, like we're looking at our CIP program and how we, take care of our assets and perform those capital projects. It's really an asset of that magnitude, and we're looking at a license, hopefully, that would be at least 40 years in length with, a tremendous revenue stream associated with it. So, that's the way we got to take it on. Fortunately, other agencies have done the same thing, and they've done it successfully. And hopefully there will be options to us. The fact that you do have such a valuable asset, there should be some options to do something creatively to try to make sure that we have adequate funds and we're not having to, overly rely on operating funds or other areas that simply are not going to be adequate for that. So that's a good cue for that, and I think that's going to be important, a really important action to be able to set that account up. I just wanted to note one other thing, Director Strange, as well on the efforts to deal with the fluctuations. I think one of the thing on the expense side, and kind of this, as we look at costs related to water rights and other things on water policy and all, I feel really good about the position we're in now in our staffing on this effort and the talent that we have here, and the organization of the positions with the water resource manager position with Peter's position, and then now with Joel taking on water policy, legislative, and matters, as well as his other duties. And I think that's a really good mix, because I think we have the ability to perform more of that in-house, that we have within, last number of years, we've relied fairly heavily on outside resources to do that. And part of that, I think, is reflective of the fact that you had, some really senior people who stepped away and have retired, and, that was necessary. But I really, really like the position we're in right now to be able to perform more of that internally. Again, it's kind of like the same thought process on us staffing where we can our CIP projects, utilizing our engineering and our inspections and our operating staff where we can on those projects. We have outstanding caliber of employees that perform at extremely high level and have that sense of ownership on the results. And I really like where that puts us in having them take more of the responsibility in driving these projects. So I think that's going to help us in being able to navigate this as we move forward.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Just a reminder, this is going to be our bridge year on the budget. As David mentioned, HDR and their 5-year analysis, we're going to be coming back with that. So how do we balance a $1 million deficit? It is balanced. The budget is balanced. Not by much, but it is balanced. But we're looking at deferring the first-year payment on the admin building loan and a one-time only transfer of $410,000 from the special project fund to bridge this funding gap. And it's a combined funding gap between water and sewer. Now, the financial analysis looked at really sewers in the whole. One of the things significant, and that's been that way for many, many years. What we're looking at is, I guess this is an old trite saying, if you don't like the answer, go back to the beginning. And so what we're doing, myself and others, is going back to the very beginning of all the data that goes into that financial analysis, making sure our allocations are correct, making sure all the information is correct, all the projections, long-term projections, whether it's in capital, whether it's in salary and benefits and everything, is all updated so that when we come back with that final analysis, the numbers are still not going to be what we'd like them to be. Obviously, I'd like to be able to see the numbers equal all across the board. We don't have to do anything, but in reality, we need to be able to take a hard look as how we're going to be moving forward, not just past this bridge year, but beyond. In that analysis, I will have confidence in it when we come back, and hopefully we're targeting the end of July, is that the information you have will help take a look at what Dave's talking, long-term planning, what Director Strange was talking, being able to fund the things we need to do to keep moving forward and realize that this district's here in perpetuity. We're only filling this space for a short amount of time in the life of this water district. We have to look long-term and make sure that we allow this district to be there for generations to come. And that's what I'm hoping to get a start with this financial analysis and the road map that we're going to take. So ongoing issues, I did mention need for water rate revenue predictability. That's at risk because the state wants to take away our ability to utilize the water to the best that we see fit. Our water sales have gone down, so we need to be able to look at a way to manage that. PERS and retiree health costs are going up. We'll have another valuation of our retiree health program coming at the end of this year. The new GASB rules require us to have it every 2 years now instead of every 3. So I'll be coming back to you after the first of the year with more information on that, with the updated valuation. I talked about the building loan. We've talked about the R&R programs that you have adopted your 5-year CIP. The next year is incorporated in this. We're very fortunate. We're one of the very, very few districts in the entire state that has dedicated funds for their R&R programs. And you should be proud of that because other agencies are scrambling just to be able to fund their renovation and keep their facilities up to date. FERC relicensing, we're coming back in August, and we've got to look at our operating deficits and funding gaps in both the overall operating budget and the sewer fund. You've seen the CIP projects, we've gone over that. What's next? We're asking you to adopt 2 resolutions today. One is to adopt the fiscal 2017-18 operating capital improvement program budget, and the next motion, which we'll take separately, is to adopt the personnel allocation resolution for fiscal year 17-18. The only change in the personnel allocation is we're going down from 65.5 FTE down to 65 FTE. We had an unfilled part-time accounting tech position in my department, which we did not fill this year because of the funding challenges. Even though we need it, we're going to have to give it up. So that's the reduction in the personnel allocation. And with that, I'll entertain any questions from the board or the public.
Any questions from the board?
Jeff, we have previously acted upon the resolutions required for the defer the payment on the building.
That is going to be taken care of later on this meeting. We will amend the debt service schedule that was adopted by a prior resolution.
Okay, so we don't have to do that before we do.
Adjourn today. You don't have to do it before this public hearing.
All right, thank you.
Anything else from the board?
No.
Anything from the public regarding our budget?
I'll move that we adopt fiscal year 2017-18 operating capital improvement plan budget.
We have a motion by Director Rademan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Thomas.
Mr. President, sorry to interrupt.
We have to close the
You
public
close the
hearing?
public hearing and then.
Okay, at this time, and before we make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
What I just said.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Rademan to adopt the fiscal year 2017-18 operating capital improvement plan budget. Second?
Second.
By Director Thomas. No further discussion. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Strange?
Yes.
Director Rademan?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
President Davidson?
Yes.
Excuse
Now-
me, Mona, what was the resolution number on that one?
2017-29.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion on discussion action regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2017-18 personal allocation budget?
Also move.
We have a motion by Director Rademan,
Second?
second by Director Underhill. Any further discussion on that item? Any public discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Strange?
Yes.
Director Rademan?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
And President Davidson?
Yes. All right.
I just have 3 bullets. You've taken care of the first one. Later on this meeting, you're going to amend the debt schedule. In July, HDR is coming back to present their final financial analysis for review and adoption. And then it's our job, staff, to look at that and come back to you with a series of recommendations on how to address those funding gaps.
Okay, I just want to thank you for all the hard work, you and your staff. I know it was a very lean, difficult budget to get through, and we appreciate your efforts, so thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay, we will move on to new business, 5A MOU being finalized and to be presented at the meeting. Discussion action regarding adoption of memorandum of understanding with employees, SEIU Local 1021. don't know where Scott went.
Mr. President, while we're waiting for Director Ratterman, I just wanted to note the printed copy of the proposed agreement with the union SEIU bargaining unit is provided to you now, and thanks for your patience on this. There were many different parts being negotiated on this, and with that, there were different agreements on many different provisions within this. So to take all of those different pieces and put them together in one final clean copy of the agreement took some, and Director Retterman, I'm just letting the board know that I appreciate your patience on waiting to get this printed copy of the agreement. It took some time to take all of the different agreements that we had on different issues, tentative agreements, and be able to provide those for the group to go through and make sure that we had a clean, accurate copy here today that reflected the outcome of the negotiation. So it's always a surprise how complicated that process can become. You know, you think when you get through all of the substance of the issues that part of it would be, you know, just a simple process, but it really isn't, given all the magnitude of how many things were actually reviewed and discussed. With this, I just want to note first, this has been a really long and arduous process to get to this point today. The negotiations on this contract, our current agreement with the SEIU, and as you know, we have two bargaining units at the district, one which is the management and confidential unit, and the other which is the SEIU bargaining unit, which represents the majority of our employees at the district and our field staff. The contract that we currently have with SEIU, and we have contracts with each unit, and all of that is, you know, that's the way the system is set up. That's the way California law provides for, you know, any public agency like ourselves to engage in our contracts with the employees. And our contract with SEIU, current contract, the 5-year agreement that we had in place, is expiring at the end of this fiscal year. So we're literally days away from that agreement expiring. And so with that on the horizon, we began many months ago on the process of working towards negotiating a new contract. And we really got started on that in earnest in February in those negotiations. And those were ongoing weekly meetings that were Stacy Waller, our Director of Human Resources, and was a part of every one of those, and our counsel, Gage Dungy. We have a very senior expert counsel on labor law and negotiations, who's been in many negotiating tables representing management. He was there as well, and I participated in a number of those meetings. Kind of as I told the representatives from the association, I would be there whenever it was helpful for me to be in the room to go through any of the issues and to brainstorm on anything and to be a sounding board. And so I feel like the result of that long process, a lot of sweat and tears to get to this point, by the people in this room. And Stacy, and also I have to really recognize the president of the association, Robbie Kramer, and Tammy as well, for her fine work on it as a representative to the association at the table, and that's just part of the group that represented the association, and they also had their SEIU staff member who represented them as well. They were a formidable team. They are a lot of our very senior, respected members of our organization who know a lot about the inner workings of our existing agreement and relationship with the association, our employees, and also the history on our agreements and our longstanding history with SEIU and our many contracts over the years with them for services. And part of just to be completely candid, part of the challenge really in the setting is coming out of really the strain that the organization and the employees felt coming out of the Great Recession. And, you know, coming into the last contract where we were looking at an environment where concessions were being were the main subject of discussion when, and like all other agencies across the state, we were grappling with some extraordinary financial challenges as a result of that. There were a number of very substantial concessions made by the employees to get to an agreement. So, you know, it's coming out of that, and those things were contained in of course, the existing agreement we have, and those were the basis of a lot of the discussions that we had about benefits and where we go from here. So there were a number of issues that we went through in extraordinary detail to try to look at every possible angle in where we could reach agreement on the issues that were on the table, things affecting compensation, retirement benefits, retirement contribution. One of the substantial concessions made by the employees in the last contract was the shift in the employee share of payment towards retirement. If you'll note in the contract on page 18, the employees pay the full 8% of the employee share towards that. That is a substantial cost to employees. It's obviously an incredibly important benefit to them as well. But that was one of the issues among many that we had to take on as far as where do we go from here, given that we had made changes that had resulted in additional costs to the employees with the existing contract. So in sum, and I'll go through some of the points on the high points on the main issues on the new contract, and Stacy will weigh in as well and give more detail, and be happy to answer any questions. I know this is an extremely important decision for any board to make on a contract. My fundamental belief and the starting point for me and for the management team really was we had to, obviously we have to be fiscally responsible and prudent in the way that we negotiate this. We simply cannot, we're not in a financial position to be able to offer up a return to some of the benefits that we had in the past, or to expand things beyond a range that is that would be that would meet every one of the desires that were presented by people at the table on the other side. That's the reality that we're in. It's obviously we're taking that on. We're dealing with the challenges under the financial analysis plan. But at the same time, we had to be respectful of the fact and cognizant that we have incredibly talented employees. We have an incredible staff, and I'm reminded by that every day. We just had an event this past Friday. It was Bring Your Kid to Work Day. It's something I've been wanting to do since I got here, and Stacy took the lead on it, did a fabulous job setting it up. And it was an opportunity for employees to bring their kids to work to see what do mom and dad do at the office, you know, and what is their office. So to get to go to places that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. And as part of that, we met up for lunch at Jenny Lind, and our lead operator there, John Brown, provided a tour of the facility, and we got to go inside, see how everything works, see the filter, see the lab, see the analysis that's done with a spectrometer on the clarity of the water, the sedimentation, the turbidity, other things. And see all of the, just the inner workings of the process. And I couldn't have been more proud of him. He came in on his day off. His daughter was going to be joining us. She had something else she had to do, so she couldn't be there. In any event, what I'm trying to say is it reminded me of how incredibly dedicated our people are and what a great workforce we have. So that is the mindset in doing this, is to be respectful of that and to recognize we're also at the precipice of having 50% of our employees eligible for retirement within the next 5 years. So retaining and developing the people that we have here that can, and I'm, as we'll be talking more about our succession planning efforts, really building that next generation of employees of leaders and managers from within, and senior field workers from within, is an essential part of our planning for the future, particularly with the fact that we do have so many people eligible for retirement. So really retaining and cultivating them and inspiring them is essential to that, because I can tell you with absolute certainty that we are not overstaffed in the field. I know it's something we've talked about a number of times. President Davidson, you brought it up. Have serious concerns about the level of staffing, but you know, we have crews of 3 covering, service areas like Ebbets Pass to handle any and all issues that come up. And, you know, we've got, like we had with 3A, we've got some really old infrastructure out there under extremely high pressure and some very, very challenging conditions. So, you know, I don't want to miss the fact that the people that are out there doing the job are essential to what we do, and we are at a level where we are not, in my mind, in any way close to being overstaffed and are probably stretching ourselves thinner than we really should be. But as part of this going forward and thinking about our cost control going forward and how we deal with some of these issues, and I think as we've noted here before, we really have to take a look at each of the positions as people come up for retirement and really take a very close look at how do we best utilize the position, in what form and in what manner, and do we need to continue to have those positions in the manner that we've had them to be able to best meet our needs and serve the public. And you know, we're going to have to do that, and I certainly don't expect that we're going to be adding many positions, maybe not many at all, within the next few years. And so we're going to have to be very smart in the way that we do that. Lastly, I just want to note with employees, we really, you know, I think one of the things it's really I wish the public understood more about what it takes to do the job that we provide. I think, you know, it's one of the things that as we've been talking about, we've got to really reach out and tell the story of the regulated environment that we work in and how strenuous those requirements are, because you know, we have the people that run our plants and take care of them and maintain them and deal with, you know, sewer spills or prevent them by operating the equipment that they do and keeping things in a good order. You know, people are operating under licenses and training and experience from the state that are very strenuous and have taken a long time to get to that point, to get those positions and to hold that. And it's a very, you know, it's a talent and a level of experience and knowledge that takes time and a lot of, and it's not something just anyone can do. It is an arduous task to get to. So with that, I just wanted to remind again that, you know, the things that we do with a limited staff are pretty remarkable, and I don't want to miss opportunities to say that, and I think this is as important as any place to say it. So with that, I'll just go through the agreement, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Just to note as we go through, you know, a lot of these things, I mean, it's a long document. You know, that most of this, you know, 9/10 of what's in here is just reflective of what was already in the existing contract. But we have made some changes, and again, these are after long negotiations where compromise was made and not everyone got everything they wanted, but I think it's a very fair deal on both sides. If you look at page 7 of the agreement, we have one of the issues that we had to work through was how do we compensate employees who are required to work beyond through their work breaks. So our employees would typically have a lunch break, half-hour lunch break, and 2 15-minute rest periods. The rest periods are compensated, the lunch break is not. How do we handle the situation where because of the demands of the job and we've got to get things accomplished, we have to have our employees work through those periods, so they're working continuously throughout the day and don't get those breaks. And this was a challenging one. I mean, right now, the way it's, you know, and it affects different things. It's not only just how much you pay, what is the rate of pay, but also how does it affect the cumulative amount of hours in a day, over 8 hours? Does that cause the district to pay overtime or not? And so one of the things that we were able to accomplish through this was some cost control in this, and that we were able to reduce the amount that we have. Historically, we've been paying for, when we had the situation of employees working through break time, we were paying 1.5 times for that time that was worked. That has been reduced to 1.25. And frankly, it's one of those things that I think we've got to be much more mindful about how we manage this in our day-to-day work, and only utilize, you know, there's a real benefit to allowing our employees to have a break. I mean, there's a good reason to do that. I mean, you want your people to have an opportunity to refresh during the day. It's good for the performance. It's good for the mindset of people working on difficult jobs. But there are times when we really have to go all in because we've got to get a site wrapped up before we get out for the day, and I want to be more mindful of that, and as a result of that, I think we can be even more successful in containing cost on that. Going to page 10, I wanted to note another issue that we spent a lot of time on was the on-call. This is another area, with a limited workforce, we, after hours protection against something that goes wrong, right? I mean, there was reference earlier, Jeff talked about SCADA and our computer systems with monitors all over the district and all of our, facilities all over the place, to be able to monitor if something should go wrong. When they do, we have to have someone who can respond to that, who gets the call, who can go out and check and make sure things are not on the verge of a disaster situation, and we get the response we need. I have to say, I'm amazed and I'm proud of the fact, I think, that we are able to perform that with one employee on call. A number of districts use teams of employees on call, so they'll have multiple employees on call at any one time. We don't. We have one, and we have the ability for them to access other employees as they need to get the people with the right skills, the expertise to be able to get on the job if needed to repair things and, again, avoid disasters. And again, that speaks to the dedication of our employees, that we could rely upon one employee at any one time to serve the responsibility. But I think we recognize that the amount of compensation, which was previously $300 a week, we needed to make sure, vet that against what others pay in the market within our similar business. I mean, that's one of the things that I think the context of this is really important for particularly the public to understand, is we have to look at how we relate to the market that we work in, and that's other agencies like us, primarily in our region, but also throughout the state, and looking at how the compensation we provide and the things that we ask, are they reasonable compared to that? Recognizing that our employees could have and do have opportunities all the time to make the change to other agencies if they want to, and retention of those employees is extremely important. So with that, we were able to stay with one on-call employee and not add additional employees on call at additional cost. But we found that the amount needed to be adjusted to reflect something closer to where the market rate is, and I want to be clear, this is not at the high end of the rate or even close to it, and a lot of agencies are paying more than that, and they're paying more for multiple employees. So, but I do think this recognizes the importance of that function. So with that, we've also set the weekday amount, so that represents at $400. It's $50 for the weekday and then $75 for weekends and holidays.
Can I just comment?
Yeah.
350 was the prior.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, so we were at 350, okay, so my notes, okay, thanks, Stacy. That's why you're here, I appreciate it. Well, more than
And
that,
we're at
but,
400 now, right?
Yes, so we went from 350 to 400. We also had added standby, or set the standby pay at $100 per day, and this is a rare occasion where we, for instance, during the Butte Fire, we had to put certain employees on standby. Having one employee on-call was not adequate. We had to have people available all over the district at different points to be able to jump in as the emergency situation developed. And so that is to provide for that. And again, those are unplanned, unlike on-call where people know what's coming, it's scheduled, and this would be in a very unique circumstance that we do that. We have, let's see, I'm just to get to some of the other high points. We have addressed other issues in the agreement. Like on page 22, you'll see that we have the compensatory time that employees, let's go to page 22. So, we have the ability for employees to cash out compensatory time, and this is to provide an opportunity in a schedule to do that can be cashed out once every quarter. Oh, thank you, appreciate it. And this is just to make sure clear how the procedure would work on that, and to provide for the opportunity for them to gain access to that. Again, this is time, the compensatory time would be for example, provided in lieu of overtime, and is something of value, and how do we recognize that? Something else to recognize on page 22, we provided for the ability to have up to 2 pairs of footwear, and we've also included language to address related Cal OSHA requirements, and added the ability to have reimbursement for winter gear. Again, these are fundamental safety needs for employees out in the field and doing the work that they do, and we want to make sure they have the equipment that they need to get that done properly. I do want to...
Can I add on?
Yeah.
The winter gear reimbursement, that is our current process. We just did not have that amount or that language in the MOU prior, so nothing has fundamentally changed with that. It's just added to the MOU.
And I want to note that we have a couple items on page 23. We have one of the things that as we were, with the departure of some of our longtime employees and the reorganization of our operations department, one of the things that we recognized we had to deal with in a more transparent and fair manner was when we have employees who are the requirement of the state under our licenses at our treatment facilities to have a lead operator or chief operator designated on those permits that can be the point of contact for the state and the person who is held responsible for monitoring the ongoing operations of those plants and the work that's done there. We needed to be I think we needed to do a better job of recognizing that if we are asking people to do that they are truly engaged with those facilities, that they are connected to those facilities, and that is an additional responsibility that they're taking on, that, the representations that they're making to the state and the things that they're submitting and the questions that they may be called to ask have potential consequences and potential liabilities if they're not handled completely and inappropriately. And so it's in everyone's interest that we handle this in a very thoughtful manner. And so with this, it provides a 2% compensation for those that are asked to step up and do that and use their license to meet that obligation where it's not otherwise required as part of their job. So not a non-supervisory type position where we're relying upon someone with for example, a level 4 distribution license to meet the requirements under our permit for a particular facility. And I think that was a great addition, because as a result of this, now we have people now we're in a position where instead of trying to dictate things that in my mind didn't work very well and were confusing, we have an opportunity to be very candid with our employees, and I think in a very positive way, we're coming together to try to make sure we meet our obligations and do it in a very open, transparent way. I also want to note that on page 23, we have a reopener. This is just to note that we will be doing a comprehensive salary and benefits, a total compensation survey of our employees but of our positions, our classifications, position classifications across the district. This is something that's long overdue. We have not done this for over 10 years, and this is one of the things that, as an agency, this is something that we all need to do on a regular basis, just to make sure that our compensation is again fair and reasonable, and that we're we are providing a level of compensation that meets our financial needs as a district, but also can make sure that we're attracting top talent and retaining them. That whole process, we'll come back to the board with that. The board will be directly involved in that. There'll be you'll be making decisions on what are the comparable agencies that we would even be going to and looking at. That's one of the fundamental issues we have to make sure that we have like agencies, and we're comparing against those that really are similarly situated. And then how we actually, what we do with that information. If we have positions that the compensation is not at market, how do we deal with that? All of that will be very transparent. It will include the board at every step of the way on that, and no decision will be made on implementation of that without the board's participation concurrence. And this is just the opportunity for us to go back to the bargaining table with the union to be able to address the outcome of that study. And again, we will make sure that it's done in a very responsible, fiscally responsible way. Just to note, just a couple more, and then I'll turn it over for any questions on page 25. We have a couple of different reopeners, one of which was in the existing contract. That's the Affordable Care Act, and if in fact it continues, we have a reopener here to be able to address any cost issues that we may realize, spikes in costs that we might realize as a result of its implementation in the future. There was some discussion at one point about the Cadillac tax and how that might affect agencies, and so this is, again, this keeps that opportunity open if and when it's needed. The other one on F, you'll see, is a reopener for retiring medical benefits. One of the, in trying to, again, as Jeff was talking about, thinking about the long-term health of the organization, I think it's going to be really important for us to have an opportunity to take a really serious look at how, for future employees, how this benefit is provided. I know it's an important benefit and extremely valuable to our employees, and it's one that they care about deeply. But it's also one that has costs, very substantial costs associated with it. And as part of that, we need to look at what, if any, options are available to try to address that as it relates to future employees. We do, there were. Within the past, the board and association have entered into agreements that included vesting requirements, so vesting schedules. So, an employee that came in didn't automatically qualify. It required a long-term employment relationship with the district to be able to gain that benefit. But we need to, I think it's a point where we need to go beyond that and look at how can we further rein in costs associated with that as it relates to new employees, and this is the opportunity to be able to do that. So there's still some work to do, and we will be coming back in the future on that. Lastly, I just want to note that we have on page 21, going back to 21, this, obviously the compensation is, as it relates to any increases in compensation, is one of the most difficult issues to work through in a contract like this, and this is one that we spent an incredible amount of time, and it was the very last issue that was resolved. But as you'll see, we have cost of living adjustments within the 3 years of the contract at 2.5% the first and second year, and then 2% the third year. I can tell you this was a compromise. It was not, we were, I think it represents a very arduous journey and a negotiation to get to this point where I think everyone in good faith worked as hard as we could to come to a number that could meet the needs of all involved. And from our perspective, we had to make sure that it would be something that we could pay for and didn't put us in a financial position that would be untenable, and I'm confident we have not. The costs associated with this contract for this year are covered within the existing budget, within the budget that was just adopted. We don't have to make any changes to the budget to incorporate that cost. But we will, in the ongoing cost of the contract is one that we will obviously have to consider and budget for, and it's a factor as we move forward in all of our financial decisions. But I do believe that it is a very fair and negotiation, and I think it was necessary to be able to reach a compromise agreement with the association, a mutually agreed upon contract. And if we hadn't been able to do that, I feel confident that we would have ended up in a situation of impasse. And as we know from a local school district, that's can be a very arduous, painful process. That is one that I personally wanted to do everything in our power to avoid. Certainly not giving up the fundamental needs of the organization in this process or compromising those, but we had to, in my mind, we had to try to preserve a relationship with our employees, a respectful relationship that would allow us to move beyond this contract on day one, on July 1, and continue the work that we have to do and to build upon that performance, because especially with the fact that we have employees coming up eligible for retirement, and we may have to work harder with less in that area than we, this is, to me, that was essential, and we simply, this was, I know it was difficult, but I'm very pleased with this outcome to be able to present this to you today. With that, I'll just ask the board if you have any questions, and Stacy or I'd be happy to answer those.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have just a comment. This has been a long process, and we've met and talked about this in closed session for several months now. And I am pleased that we're able to come to an agreement with the union and the MOU. And I'm just impressed with the length of the MOU, and it's detailed. The overview that we've been looking at and talking about for several months have just been the key points. And I'm just taken back by how detailed and what a lengthy contract and how many things that there are to look at in this process. And I do appreciate the union and the negotiating team being able to come to an agreement.
Thank you. I just kind of chuckled a little bit because I was thinking the length of the contract. I mean, it's just kind of in part made it even more arduous, but
not the 3 years, but the
no. I mean the number of
the
pages,
thickness of how many
because
pages
there
are
are
in
so many things that are included in this. But I think that's honestly, there's a lot of great stuff in here. I mean, I want to my experience in coming from other agencies with similar contracts with employee bargaining units. There are things in here that I think when I came in, I was really impressed. I mean, we have a joint labor management committee that was created through this process years ago that is an incredibly valuable way that we use all the time to deal with issues that arise about how do we interpret different things that are happening that affect the organization or employees, some of the things that are related to the MOU, related to our employee policies. Any event, I want to say that's the kind of thing that having the ability to work in that manner with our association, to have that relationship with them and their officials, and to be able to resolve issues, to resolve them early, to avoid conflict and disputes, to avoid grievances, to avoid impasse. That's worth a lot to this organization, and it saves us. Frankly, it saves us a lot of time and money to be able to have that. So, in any event, I appreciate your indulgence on that, and again, if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any other questions for the board?
I just have a comment, and that's the fact that again, we've been watching this, or we've been working on it, and so the staff and here at CCWD, but worked very hard on this, but we have to give a lot of credit to the union representation, because they worked equally as hard, and for them to bring the membership together to approve this is a very big feat, and you're to be congratulated on what you did and how you're going to keep it going. That's very important. I can't say enough about the integrity of the people and two of which are in this room that were at the table. And again, they were tough negotiators. I mean, they Robbie's not somebody I want to play poker with. Let me just say that, but because I think he would probably take everything that I have. But at the same time, I mean, it was always done in a manner of respect and integrity, Mutual respect, right.
High degree of ethics, and again, and as well with Cheryl Harris, representative for SEIU, again, extremely strong advocate for her bargaining unit. But again, I'm proud that we came out of that with, again, if you lead to a situation where you end up in conflict and an impasse, it's the exact opposite side from where I hope we could be coming out of this, that it puts us in a point of really strength to really accelerate our performance in the organization, and the employees are the bedrock of that. So,
Are there any questions? Any further questions? Stacy, do you have anything else to, is there anything from the public? Now, are we adopting this or today?
this is a request to adopt a resolution that approves execution of the MOU.
Okay, can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
A motion by Director Underhill, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Rademan. Okay, is there any further discussion?
I have a few things that I want to say.
All right.
Hopefully I can do it without being interrupted. I think as we look at our budget, and we've already heard the term uncertainty moving into the future, I'm very concerned. I made a promise when I ran for election at this office that I would be fiscally conservative. That when I make a promise, that's something I don't take lightly. And I've got some concerns, again, moving forward with our budget. One of the most challenging things for me is going to be justifying increasing wastewater budgets to individuals that have a hard time making their monthly payment, okay, in disadvantaged communities that I represent. Because what's going to happen is they're going to look at what I feel is a labor contract that's very generous in a number of different areas. And they're going to look at them having to reach deeper into their pockets to essentially pay for this contract. That's how I perceive it. Now, I have all respect for my fellow board members, for the employees. In fact, I've walked in your shoes. I've worked, historically 8 years with the special district in our county west of here, San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control. So I understand the whole process of special districts and the challenges with budgets and everything. At the same time, I have a hard time with this agreement coming forward. And I'm not going to make any bones about it. It's not a personal attack against anybody. When I make a promise, when I give my word, I want you to know that it is a promise and it's my word, and I hold fast to that. Unlike a lot of other folks in political positions that seem to dance and move. So again, it's with all due respect of our administration, of our employees, because again, these types of agencies, it's your employees that are your most valuable resource. I know that and I understand that. And as a result, though, again, looking at having to defer payments for our admin building to the tune of $570,000, to do a one-time transfer of $410,000 from our special project fund just to balance our budget. That's almost $1 million that some people can view as being almost upside down, a shortfall in our budget. And yet, we've got a 3-year contract coming up that I don't think reflects necessarily, and again, this is my personal opinion, I've got all due respect for everybody, but because it's my personal opinion, I think that our budgets are only going to get worse with these uncertainties. So I'm uncomfortable. I wish we could do water transfers. I wish we had increased water consumption revenues. I wish that we could develop or support or experience development in the right places in this county to increase our revenue. But it ain't happening anytime soon, folks. That's kind of the bottom line. So I've got to stand, and my vote will reflect the word that I've given to the people that voted me into this position. And understand that those are mostly disadvantaged communities that have asked me to speak on their behalf, and I'll do that in my vote today. Thank you.
So do you have amendments that you want to propose to this agreement?
No, I don't.
What is-
We've
what
already
is-
discussed that in closed session.
What
as
is
far as
the
my-
additional payroll expense annual estimated to be at?
The cost associated with the contract for fiscal year 17-18 would be $134,895. Over the course of the contract, the next year, well, within 18, the next following fiscal year would be 173, just over 137,000. Then for the final year, fiscal year 19-20, it would be just over 117. And so with accumulatively, that's a cost of $779,870.
But for this, for the next annual year, the budget that we just, all of us adopted, it's how much?
$134,895. And that's, we do not need to increase the budget to provide for that. We've been able to.
Well,
include that
I just want to make it clear that it isn't the contract necessarily that is the reason that we're deferring some of these other costs. I mean, it's certainly, it's partially, a part of that, but it is not the whole thing.
No, not at all. And I can completely understand where Director Strange, where you're coming from on this. In what I'm proposing to the board, I'm looking at the mission statement of the organization, guiding the work every day. I believe that, again, knowing how lean we are with the people that do the job that we have, and the fact that these are highly skilled, very, very good employees, the idea that we would do anything that would create an environment where those people wouldn't want to work here, and we might not be able to attract people nearly as good. I fear that, and I firmly believe that if we weren't able to reach an agreement, and I realize the timing of this is difficult because we have a contract expiring at the end of this year. We couldn't ignore it. We have to work towards that, a new contract. But I firmly believe that if we didn't come up with a compromise that we could mutually agree to on both sides, that it would lead to additional costs for us. In the fact that I believe we couldn't perform with the same number of employees because we'd have people who are inexperienced, who don't know our system, who we do not know what level of performance they're going to give us. And if they come in thinking this district is a place that has a reputation of being in conflict with the union, I don't think we'd get the top candidates. And also I think that, compounded by the fact that we have so many retirements, that poses I think that poses a dangerous situation potentially where we risk an enormous liability and damage to our communities and our district's reputation with the agencies that regulate us, and all the liabilities associated with that if we don't provide and meet our obligations and provide safe, reliable service. So, even I just want you to know I've wrestled with the same very difficult issue, and again, I wouldn't present this to you unless I believe that this is the best option for the well-being of the district.
Jeff?
Director Underhill?
Yes, okay. And I came on to the board again after a 5-year hiatus, and I came on at the same time with Director Strange and Director Mills, and yes, we looked at what was happening to CCWD. I might bring up something that just happened to me recently, just Monday. I went on a field trip of Ebbets Pass with Jesse Barton, and I was going to...
Jesse Hampton, our operations manager? Yeah.
Yes, our operations manager. And we spent the entire day going through Ebbets Pass. And some of the conditions that our people have to work under, it was just mind-blowing to me. I had never seen this before. Our water tank is 1 mile away from the main road. And during the winter, guess what? Our employees have to snowshoe up to our water tank just to check it out. It's not on SCADA because we don't have the electricity or whatever. There are 2 water tanks in that position, and you would not believe what the winter has done to the roads. And as I say, we ask our employees on call, you know, something's not right, you have to go out there. And that was a real eye-opener to me. And I urge the rest of the directors, if you want to see what we're working under, what we're asking our employees to do, please go see them. So that, that gave me a real eye-opener. And so I understand what we're doing. We're, balancing the budget. My husband's tired of hearing me say, the fact that we can't balance the budget. But we have to give up things. And we will give up, all of us will give up in order to assure the staff, or assure that we have the right caliber of employees here at CCWD. And we will continue to do that. And we'll find a way to make it work.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a quick comment. I'm proud that we were able to, and I just kind of said it a little while ago, that our management negotiating group and the union and our employees were able to come to an agreement. And I do think that this $134,000 increase in our salaries, as compared to a $9 million budget, is not insignificant, but I think it's important, and I do realize that our employees are our most, out of all the assets we have, are definitely one of the most the most important asset that we have, and I know that everyone was not happy at the end of this negotiation, and that's sometimes what happens, but I think everyone is satisfied. Or most of us are satisfied. And certainly there's going to be employees who also didn't get what they wanted here. But I do think that we're taking the necessary steps, and I'm proud that we got it finished, and we do have an agreement, able to shake hands and walk away from that negotiation table.
Anything else? Director Thomas.
To me, you have to kind of think about comparing the cost of what it's costing us to reach this agreement, which I am very much in approval of the amount of raise that the employees got. Compare that to the cost of doing nothing, or the cost of getting in an antagonistic situation, a work stoppage or something. It could cost us in a week what the annual increase would be. And I think it's kind of interesting, you look at the salary schedule, this $130,000 is about equal to what adding one chief civil engineer would be to our workforce. So
It's 1.5% increase in our budget,
that's inexcusable.
well,
No.
I don't know if it's inexcusable, but it's
No,
just,
I'm kidding.
it's 1.4%.
But I appreciate you putting that perspective on it. I've been operating in a union environment my entire life, and I've negotiated multiple contracts, and this was a good, healthy, mutually beneficial outcome. I'm very anxious to vote for the approval of it. I understand Director Strange and his opposition to what we did. He can tell his constituents that he tried as best he could, but I'm confident that we have done the right thing.
Okay. What did I do with my notes? Got on the sidetrack. I just have a couple comments. I think certainly, Calaveras County Water District provides terrific jobs I don't think there's any question about that. I think people want to work here. The people that we have working here, I do believe, are dedicated. Certainly, those people that work in the field in my area, I definitely appreciate it. I don't think we're staffed adequately. I have a serious concern, particularly with the economic upturn, that we're going to fall short in the field with a lot of activity. So, while I recognize that we have a lean budget coming up right now, and need to refrain from that, I do think that this is a fair agreement with our employees. I think it's a responsible one. I mean, retaining your employees is generally always cheaper than training new employees and having that, the institutional knowledge, having to retrain that. It's an expensive process. I think this was the fiscally responsible, conservative thing to do. It is not a rich contract. And throughout the last 8 years, if we went back and looked at all the things that we took away during leaner times from their contract, I think that at some point you have to be able to acknowledge that, that staff used to get much greater benefits, and the district paid much more money toward their retirement and things of that nature. That has already been taken away. We've done the conservative, responsible thing in the past, and I think that this is a conservative, responsible proposal for our staff members. And to not make any suggestions on how we could have done it better, I don't know, how you can say you've done all you can but not do that. So with that, those are my comments. I appreciate the staff's work. I appreciate the management. Thank you all. I think all 5 of us here appreciate, the people who are going to benefit from this contract. And I think the public should recognize that we truly do have a tremendous staff here at Calaveras County Water District, and we need to maintain that. So with that, is there any other comment? Anything from the public? We have a motion and a second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Strange?
No.
Director Rademan?
Yes?
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
And President Davidson?
Yes. Do we need a little short break, or should we keep going? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break.
Thought you'd never ask.
Well, you're right here, all you have to do is just...
Jeff, I'm gonna need to run at 11:30 over to the high school and pick my daughter up. She's doing a little basketball camp thing, and I'll be right back with her. So when you see me get up and leave, I don't know where it'll be, but I will return.
Well, listen, there is nothing... These should go fairly quickly.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Next one.
I've already tried to train.
Yes, I am trainable in my old age.
No, I mean, I'm trying to train the board to get this.
I thought I did a pretty good job on the budget presentation, cutting it down.
You did, you could have done better, though.
You said 5 slides and you showed us 7.
I went down to 4 slides.
Okay, we'll move on to, are we ready, Paul? We'll go to 5, new business, MOU, wait, I'm sorry, 5B, annual standby assessment fees. Mr. Meyer.
Yes, Mr. President. This is an annual process your board goes through in approving the upcoming assessment of standby fees on the affected properties. We are not increasing them. We are just asking your approval, and you're going to have the requirements is to vote on them individually. The Indian Rock Vineyard subdivision, West Point Improvement District 3, Ebbets Pass Improvement District 5, Jenny Lynn Improvement District 6, Copper Cove Improvement District 7, Saddle Creek subdivision, Copper Cove Lock Antenna Improvement District 8S. And basically, these are standby charges in connection with provisions, standby charges often assessed to an unimproved property to help ensure adequate water or wastewater service will be available to that parcel when needed, or to a developed property to help finance water or wastewater system improvements or other costs and expenses to provide water or wastewater services. With that, I'll entertain any questions, and you will need to take each improvement district separately.
Okay, we do this, we do this every year. It's not that big of a process, but we do recommend we just bust through this.
Okay, so each one will take a motion and a second.
And
and we'll ask
I'm
for
gonna go ahead and
discussion,
start,
and then-
start with.
I have a question for Jeff.
Yes, sir.
So, if someone was going to expand these areas, so to speak, how can they do that? Or is this designed to feed into just specific subdivisions that have maps that have been accepted by the county, or what? Can you explain to me a little bit of this process? And I'm thinking particularly in the West Point area where it's a little bit more rural, and I don't think there's ever been such thing as a subdivision happen up there.
This is beyond subdivisions. It's areas that have been designated for improvement districts within the service area. And in the case of Ebbets Pass area, it kind of goes beyond because we are providing what can be construed as fire services, water for fire departments. To be able to go back and adjust this, I believe would require a vote of the people. Am I correct, Matt?
If you wanted to increase these, you have to go through the 218 process.
Okay.
So to keep them steady, we enacted these a long time ago. So to continue them, you have to have a resolution every year. You have to consider it every year and approve it every year. But if you want to increase it or change it, you have to go back through the 218 process.
So in the West Point, then, thank you, in the West Point area, Wilseyville is part of that West Point improvement, or is Wilseyville currently, does not have an improvement district area, or is not included in an existing improvement district? Because we've got some wells going dry and some people that are concerned up there, and so.
It is for the water side, and I can get you a map afterwards to show you the exact overlay on this, and I understand the well issue going through. But if we try, as Matt said, if we try to
Right.
expand that area, we'd have to go to a
But
218.
this is not, doesn't preclude somebody from making an application. They can go in and make an application for service.
Right.
It's completely separate from this issue.
Right,
An
and this,
application, it doesn't mean that an application would be accepted or denied based on whether or not they're paying a standby fee.
Right.
They're completely separate.
But these are areas, these are more general areas versus an individual parcel.
right.
Right, anybody can make an application for service, and it's just a matter of whether, the answer is we can probably serve everything. It's just a matter of, being cost effective.
Sure.
Right.
But
Okay, no, I had some questions because I didn't quite understand.
you wouldn't want to change this to allow them to make an application for service. I think they come in and make an application, that's that.
On their own.
But if there's a
Separate.
group, we had it in the Jane Lind area where there was a group that was 60, 70 houses on Dolly Cassidy that were having the same problems. So, there was a bunch of wells that had gone dry, and there was an area of Rancho that never got service. They formed an assessment district. So if there's a group that would come together, they can actually go through a process and go through an assessment process, and then we can, if enough of them vote for it, then they can hook on the system out.
Yeah, okay.
And one further comment on that. I'm just going to read from the resolution. The $10 per parcel per year to which the water service is made available and that is not receiving water service by the district as determined by a distribution main in a contiguous right-of-way or easement. So in other words, these are people who are not currently receiving service, but it is available to them.
It pretty much guarantees that they would get service if they asked for it.
Correct. This is, where
I don't know if that's true.
They have to pay for it.
No,
and
no,
they
no,
have to
no.
be
This is
able-
for the larger, you know, the benefit of having a public water system to provide for the, you know, like the fire protection needs of the community, things like that. But, yeah, that would be, again, as President Davis has said, the question about whether you could connect would be an application to do that. And then that would have to be analyzed to determine what system improvements would be required to provide that and whether the water is available for it.
I believe that these things were generally set up when we provided service to an area that was expansive but didn't have anybody on it. So these were just basically maintenance fees to fund the old, fund the systems when there were nobody on it.
Right.
And as more and more people come on, it becomes a little less important, but it's still an important thing to our budget. But I think that's how they were established, not, just at some point. You got to remember, our connection fees used to be, $80. So they weren't collecting a lot of money to get a lot of these, systems online and such.
Well, I would think that you couldn't collect these standby fees and then deny somebody, that has the economic wherewithal to create that connection. You couldn't deny them because you've been collecting this $10 assessment fee all along. Maybe there's a legal.
I get asked, Matt, I don't think there's any connection between this and whether or not we could approve an application for a new connection. Again, that would be, if we have the water and we can, whoever this is willing to pay for the infrastructure to provide for that, then there would be no reason for us to say no. We would, in fact, welcome that. But this, again, you got to think, and I know sometimes this is kind of behind the scenes stuff, so it's not as apparent as we relate to individual customers receiving service, but this is, thinking about the larger benefits of having the water and wastewater system to the health and safety of the communities that we serve. So even though you might not physically have a connection to the system now, you're still benefiting from it. The having access to a water supply up there is fire protection for the community. That protects everybody. So.
And how long have these fees been stagnant?
Mona, you may have a better idea.
When they were,
Yeah, the current price has been this price.
it's been the same since they were adopted, they never changed.
And to change it, we would be at 218.
Right, and these fees were adopted prior to November 1st of 1996.
Except with the exception of Saddle Creek, which came on later. Saddle Creek was around
Okay,
2000.
okay, thank you.
Here was one that was established in 1976 for Copper Cove.
Are there any other questions regarding these?
Move for acceptance of Indian Rock Vineyards standby assessments.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second regarding resolution, let's number these,
This one will be 2017-32.
okay? A motion and then a second regarding resolution 2017-32. Are there any questions from the public? Anything from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the West Point Improvement District 3 on the annual assessment fee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on resolution 2017-33. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Abbott's Pass Improvement District 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second regarding resolution 2017-34. Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion, we, oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we improve the Jenny Lynn Improvement District 6, Copper Cove Improvement District 7, including Copperopolis town site.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there any public comment regarding resolution 2017-35? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll go with the Saddle Creek subdivision within the Copper Cove Improvement
Wait.
District 7. Ooh,
That's not the,
Motion.
oh, are they,
Yeah,
they're separate, Bertha. It's just Saddle Creek Subdivision Improvement
Oh,
District 7.
okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Motion to approve Saddle Creek subdivision.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Resolution 2017-36. Any public comment? Yes.
What Bertha started to say within the Copper Cove Improvement District number 7 is part of the resolution in the packet.
Oh, okay, I'm just looking at the, are those,
The other one
let me
is
just,
gonna be next.
let's clarify that, because there's, Copper Cove is right below it, but that's Lock Antenna.
You're looking,
I'm just going through the agenda.
you're looking, we're looking at the agenda item as and you are as well. He's looking at the agenda package, the agenda itself.
The agenda packet that's online.
Which is
So are we,
accurate.
it's the same thing. We're
Which is
gonna-
accurate.
We're gonna do Copper Cove next.
No, I'm saying in resolution, Saddle Creek, it reads Saddle Creek subdivision within the Copper Cove Improvement District number 7.
Yes, it does.
So what I'm saying is what Bertha was starting to say was correct, what she said.
Okay, let's just get clarification from staff, and then we'll move on.
Okay. There's a water improvement district and a sewer improvement district.
Okay, so,
Yet 7 is water and 8S is sewer.
okay, so they need to be done separately.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So I was right.
no.
So, Mr. President, the resolution is to approve the, for Saddle Creek subdivision within the Copper Cove Improvement District number
Okay.
7. Yeah.
All right, and then we have Copper Cove Lock Antenna right below.
That'll be next.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion regardless.
And a second.
And a second. Thank you for the public comment. Any further? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Okay, I move that we approve the Copper Cove / La Contenta Improvement District 8S sewer.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move to 5C, discussion and action regarding contract renewal for federal legislative advocacy services with O'Connell and Dempsey.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is our annual request of the board to authorize the continuation of professional services agreements that we have related to policy matters. This first one that we're considering is the request to authorize a renewal of a contract with our federal advocate, Mia O'Connell of O'Connell and Dempsey LLC. Mia has been providing these advocacy services for us as our federal lobbyist for a number of years with a prior firm at one point. Then she was able to, she left and created her own firm, O'Connell and Dempsey. And as a result of that and the contract that you see here, we actually achieved a cost savings related to her work in the amount of the $48,000 in total. And so that was the amount of the contract for this past year. That is the amount that we are asking the board to approve for the next year. We have continuing efforts in DC that are very important to our projects here, one of which is the completion of the analysis of the available access to storage or conveyance through New Melones Reservoir to utilize for beneficial use in our county and within the region for groundwater banking, fire protection at the Columbia Air Attack Base, some of the drought protection efforts that we're trying to do locally as well. And that will continue, and that report will be prepared and approved by the Commissioner's Office of Reclamation, and so having a liaison back in DC helping on that effort, and also working with staff for Congressman McClintock, in particular Chris Tudor, who is his point person on water issues, who's been fantastic in helping us and on this effort, and we would not have been in this position without the Congressman's help, and Chris is on this. So that is one of the primary concerns for us, is to complete that successfully. As well, we are looking to include projects that we have within our capital planning process, within our CIP, to gain access to transportation funds whenever a transportation bill does move forward in Congress. That's obviously taking longer than we had expected, but...
Transportation or infrastructure?
I'm sorry, infrastructure bill, that's right. Yes, thank you. Comprehensive infrastructure bill that will include transportation, but also, as we know, because of the efforts we've made, and that was one of the things we really pitched for back in D.C. when I was there with the ACO group, was that we have to see water infrastructure given an equal priority to transportation, and we have a commitment from our delegation to make that happen. So at some point that we expect that will happen, and again, we want to make sure our projects are in the queue so we gain access to those funds. As well, we are also trying to further efforts to improve our forest conditions, the health and well-being of our watersheds, which, you know, as we have with 3 primary watersheds in our counties that are the source of our supplies and also sources to other areas throughout the state. That is something that we are continuing to work towards, trying to model some of the things that we've been able to successfully do within the McCollum, within the Umrefford and Cornerstone, trying to do that also within the Stanislaus watershed. One of the things that's happening right now is there is a comprehensive Forest Management Act, forest restoration bill that is moving forward in the House of Representatives. Bruce Westerman's bill, he's a Yale forester, congressman out of Arkansas, who is leading the effort on this. Our own Congressman McClintock is playing a prominent role in it as well, providing leadership. And there are things that are happening back in D.C. that are going to help us in our efforts. And again, I think particularly looking at the risk to the Stanislaus watershed, given its proximity to the Rim and Butte fires and how close it came to burning in the Butte fire, it is gaining attention. I know that there are people, prominent people within the water community who are now looking to it as potentially the next place to get a major investment. So that's positive, and we're going to work towards that as well. And so with that, I'll just ask that the board authorize the continuation of this contract under the same terms and conditions.
All right. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Oh, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right. Any comments from the board?
I personally feel very good about approving this contract with Mia. We've known her for years, and just looking at conditions of what's happening back in the Capitol, I think that it's not time to make a change or to, you know, lessen our efforts back there. And so I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
Anything else?
Well, I also want to echo those comments. I feel very privileged that I was able to go back to Washington, D.C. with a delegation of the CCWD years ago and met Mia, and I was just so impressed by, for a small person, she is just so intelligent, resourceful, well-connected, and productive. I mean, I just really, she impressed me a lot, and I'm very pleased to support this action.
Anything further?
No, I do think that having a lobbyist in Washington is very, very important, and I definitely have seen her at work in Washington D.C. as well, and she is very, 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 very productive. And this is definitely not having a lobbyist, I think, is something that we definitely have to have. Having Mia right now, I think, is important. This is definitely not a time to make any changes or to discuss that. And the fact that she's doing this for the same price year after year, and we are in the middle of some very, very important projects, including in wind and the other items that she's working on regarding groundwater banking. I certainly will support this.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, I'd like to echo those sentiments. I've been fortunate enough to interact with Mia in D.C. over the last couple of years on 2 different occasions, and have always been impressed with how well she's connected with folks. And most important for me is I see her actions coming to fruition, and I definitely support continuing her role, especially at what I feel is a very much a bargain basement price.
All right. Yeah, she's okay. All right, is there any, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, discussion action regarding contract renewal for water policy counseling services with John Mills.
Thank you. And this is another one of our consultants that we rely on for expert water policy consulting, both primarily as with regard to state policy, legislation, regulatory matters, and other policy matters at the state level, but also on the federal issues as well. John is, as you well know, is one of the real experts on Sierra Nevada water issues. He has a forestry background. He's been in. He was an advocate with, I believe it actually in D.C. and in California for RCRC a number of years ago. He's been working on these water issues for many years. It's kind of interesting because he can tell me from a first-hand perspective some of the things that happened when I was a kid that people talk about all the time as the big events in California water. So, in any event, I've certainly gained a lot of knowledge working with John, and he's been a tremendous resource to us and me and other staff. He works a lot with Peter Martin, and Water Resource Manager, and with Joel as Joel is working more and more on water policy, the conservation policy issues as we try to influence where the state heads with the legislation. As you'll see, the contract that we're proposing, and as you saw in the budget, is a substantial reduction from what we've had this past year at $120,000 a year. Now it's at $80,000, and I'm recommending this to the board because I think that with the change in responsibilities and having Joel's position with water policy, with the legislative and conservation policy work that he's now doing, I think that it is appropriate, and I think the best outcome for us to really have more of that work performed internally and utilize more John as an outside resource. Likewise with Peter, and John does helps us a lot on water rights related issues. As Peter has really grown in his position, and he's a tremendous asset to the district. I think it's a good transition to more allow him to be a resource to Peter when and as needed on issues, and so I'm comfortable that we can meet our needs with the budget that's proposed here. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about John Mills as a person and how valuable he has been to this district for many years. And I wouldn't be as supportive of this if I didn't have tremendous faith in both Peter Martin and Joel Metzger. And I do think that having an overlap with some of our recent retirees leaving and new employees coming in, and having this overlap with John Mills for the past couple of years, I think has been very important to the district. But I think we are at a comfort level now with and I was going to say that the legs that Peter and Joel were able to get underneath them very quickly and moving forward, they are taking over some of his duties. I wouldn't be supportive of John Mills being not associated with our district any longer, but I am comfortable with a reduced role for this year, and we'll take a look at next year what happens there.
Anything further from the board?
Yeah, John is a great resource. I think it's important to realize this is not his only source of income. What is the other district he represents?
Yeah, Tuolumne County Water Agency.
That's right.
El Dorado County Water Agency. Yeah, and I'm sure there are others that I'm missing as well.
Yeah, so I'd like to see the reduction. I would like to make a comment, though, that I feel that would benefit me and probably the rest of the board is, as we've done with MIA, if we could have periodic updates as to some of the work that he's doing. Because for me, it's always important to see that the work that he's putting in, that we receive, reward for that. And it's not always easy to be able to see how we benefit as a district with the money that we're putting out. So if there's a way that John, can provide us those intermittent updates as to you know, what he's been able to accomplish and, you know, where he's working. I would really appreciate that.
Okay, you bet. And would you prefer that that be in person at a board meeting, or potentially maybe
Well,
a
we
legal
gotta,
affairs
we
committee?
gotta think of the subject matter and whether or not
Yeah.
it's open discussion, open session stuff or closed session.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Gotcha.
And
Well,
so-
as it fits, like when he came and spoke about the comments we were submitting on the water quality plan update, I think that would probably be the best bet. We'll give you an update on those different issues as we progress on them.
Yeah, there are some tasks, like the headwaters that he's working with, and some of those things that I think are very appropriate for presentation to the board. Others might be more water rights, things like that, might be more closed session discussion
Gotcha.
items, but yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to add something I saw. It's very, very important, the networking ability that our contacts have, or the people who work for us. And I saw that in action. I saw John in action down in Monterey. And it is just wonderful about who he knows and how he can get their attention. You know, because it's nice to be able to just say, hello, how are you? But engage in communication and talking about the issues and what have you. So I think he's very strong in that
Yeah.
area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we realized the benefit of that this year with the ability to join forces with Stanislaus County in the formation of our groundwater sustainability agency. That I don't think that would have happened but for his relationships with people down there. So, yeah, I completely agree with you.
And there appears to be some challenges with the T-stand moving forward, that John's experience with IRWMs would be really valuable to have.
Okay. Gotcha.
Anything further? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we renew Mr. John Mills' contract at the $80,000 number that we're looking at, that's been brought forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
I would just like to add that I do support John Mills. He is an amazing person with a lot of knowledge and skill, as the board has said, and I thank you. Hope you will all support him.
Well, I'm just glad we don't have to pay him by the word. Anything further from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 5E, discussion action regarding amending the debt schedule for administrative building internal loan.
Now we're back to that.
This is what you were looking for earlier, right?
Yeah, this is a cart after before the horse.
Again, good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. This is a follow-up action to the approval of the budget. We're going to be deferring the payment of the admin building loan. It's an internal payment to some of our expansion funds. I just want to make one correction. If you look at the agenda item, page 1, down at the bottom, we're amending it to go through years 7 through 11. So we're adding 1 year to the 10 years. And there will be an additional cost of $75,000, which will be the interest of this year. But
That cost that goes back into our improvement funds.
yes, it does. So you're right. It's a shift of funds from the Fund 108 to the improvement funds, the expansion funds.
I hope this
Yeah.
passes.
Well, I want everyone to recognize what, I mean, I don't know, I want to make sure the whole board understands that we're paying this money back to ourselves.
Right.
Yes,
Sounds like a great way we're making interest.
Well,
yes. And in light of that, there were options that were discussed when the building was built of going outside and getting loans from outside entities. We would definitely not have this flexibility if we went outside.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
what,
and the interest rate was higher. I believe when we had the USDA secured, it was 4, and we had no control, and,
Yes.
and, you know, so I'm not any happier than anybody else that we don't have the money to pay this, you know, off, but, you know, it was our goal to, you know, to get rid of some assets, sell, you know, the old admin building and the 15-acre property, which we're still working toward that, that will, you know, that will reduce this somewhat. But regardless, I mean, I'm still, you know, very thankful that we built this facility when we did, at the low end of the construction market. We were able to borrow the money from our own internal funds. We will, you know, pay it back into those funds, and I think it was still, you know, the right way to go about getting this facility here. So, you know, the fact that we are going to extend it, you know, I mean, it would be great. But how many of our other assets do we plan to pay off that quickly? You know, none of them.
Exactly, no.
You know, normally, we would pay it off in the lifetime of the asset, you know, so, but I still want to try to expedite the payment of this facility, but, you know, I think the decision to do it was still a sound one, and by doing it this way, it did give us flexibility, and we're not paying a bank, you know, this interest. It's not leaving the county.
Exactly, and when you look at the life of the building versus the life of the loan, the life of the building, I don't anticipate this district moving from this lot. We're here, we're gonna have to maintain it, but when you amortize that cost of the building over 40, 50, 60 years, it's obviously a very good deal when you financed it internally.
I'm very supportive of doing this, and I was supportive of using our own means of financing it from borrowing within when we did that a few years ago. And the flexibility, I think, is the key word here, that we're able to do this, and it's not a bank breathing down our neck. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a bridge year to be working with.
Yeah.
And I do hope and will work to make sure that this is a one-time deal and we're not kicking the can down the road again next year. And this is extending this, and again, it's about flexibility and giving us time, basically 12 months to figure things out. And I think this is a key component to our budget. If this doesn't pass, we're back to the drawing board on that budget deal, and hopefully not another 6 meetings working it over, but.
Director Adamant, I do appreciate your comment on referring to this as a one-time process.
Right.
Okay.
Because I think we'll all be looking at that bridge and to see, you know, the foundations of the bridge and how much that bridge is going, how much weight that bridge is going to carry. And so it can go on and on and on. But, you know, this is fine. This is fine.
Thank you.
You're all about bridges, aren't you?
You have a lot of experience right now.
You guys are really getting this politician language down.
Well, now, you know, ever since you showed up to show us how to do it, it's been a big help.
Well, you heard me speak earlier.
I did. I was looking for trumpets, so we're listening for them.
Yeah, I know you were, with bated breath.
So do we have a motion regarding this item?
I make a motion.
Okay, two.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion to approving resolution amending internal loan agreement to finance the CCWD operation headquarters. We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
I'll probably apologize before I do this because I'm evidently in an ornery mood today, and you guys are going to get the brunt of it. But I think you should thank the disadvantaged communities of Vallecito and West Point, because it's because of them that you have $1,750,000 in the expansion funds to even do this. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing light of that fact, especially in my district.
I guess I don't understand what that,
I believe Ms. Mills was referring to the original resolution that authorized the borrowing, and in that, they borrowed from $250,000 from West Point Water and $1 million from Vallecito Sewer, the expansion funds. However, those funds are dedicated towards expansion, and they're, at that particular time, and even now, we just don't see any particular projects on the horizon, and that's why we looked at those amongst the other 5 or 4 that we borrowed from.
yeah. Yes?
My apologies.
Certainly with
All right,
West
well,
Point Sewer, we see
Well,
a
thank them.
project. we're hoping-
Anything further?
Those were covered on those $10 fees.
Anything further? Any other comments, public or staff? Okay, let's call the roll, please.
Director Strange?
Yeah.
Director Rademacher?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
And President Davis?
Yes. Okay, 5F, discussion direction regarding approval of submittal for grant funds from CPPA Energy Efficient Program.
Morning, President Davidson and board members.
Excuse me, Peter, I've got to run pick my daughter up to high school. I will be right back as soon as I can, but just to let you know that I'll be leaving in a few
Okay,
minutes.
this is pretty non-controversial, so, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, we had a CPPA audit of the headquarters building. We have made use of this particular program in the past when we built the building. It's kind of good to go and look at the building every once in a while and other facilities as well using this program. They identified the exterior lighting of the parking lot as being a good candidate for a project where we could retrofit the lighting with more energy efficient LED bulbs. So the action for you today is just allowing the general manager to fill out the application to CPPA. We can get it on the agenda next month at CPPA's board meeting for potential approval. So, I have any questions, if you have any questions about the particular audit or anything.
This is just a $6,705 project for lighting in the parking lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct,
And it's an application for a grant to do so.
correct.
Okay.
You know, I've always been curious as to what the power bill, if there was an increase or a decrease from moving from our old facility. I've always just been curious. I don't need to have it. I'd just like to know if that's available, and the fact that I know we're still paying for that facility over there. But when we were in operation, it would just be kind of interesting information to see how they add up against each other. So
Yeah.
if it's not real difficult, it's not all that important, but it'd be interesting to know.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
There were 3 meters in there?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to allow our general manager to submit the application for a grant for this project.
We have a motion by Director Adamant,
Second.
second by Director Thomas. Do we have any board discussion? Any public discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5G, discussion action regarding disposal and/or sale of surplus vehicles.
I'll pull my Steve Hutchings. Any questions?
Yeah, I miss Steve.
I wish I had an opportunity to meet him.
What we, staff, are asking is for you to approve the disposal and/or sale of surplus vehicles and equipment. The items are listed on the back, on page 2 of the staff report. I only have one thing to add. I did not have the mileage of the Durango at the time. It's just under 140,000 miles. And I'm here to answer your questions.
And again, mileage isn't the only factor. It is obviously an important factor, and we have a policy based on replacement, based on mileage, but we've also got, based on our experience with having to maintain a vehicle that's problematic and is becoming more costly, then at some point, we may decide to dispose of it before the miles exceed the limit.
Yeah, because that 2008 Ford with 103,000 is not,
2008 was not a good year for Ford diesels.
Unfortunately.
Okay, anything?
that's it.
Move for acceptance of adopting this policy to surplus our vehicles and equipment.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment? There is.
She's getting pretty quick in that thing.
Who are we giving these away to?
Bet you wish I didn't have wheels. Anyway, my question is, do you offer these vehicles to other agencies before you actually put them out on the open market?
And according to our surplus policy, our current surplus policy, it goes directly to a public auction. We can revisit that if you'd like, but a number of these items are basically to the point of very little value or very little use, just because of the fact we've gotten everything we can out of the vehicles.
Well, they're a value regardless. They are a value,
Yes.
so we wouldn't be able just to give them to anybody, I don't believe.
No,
We would have
and
to,
they're not
they'd have to
avail-
pay market value or,
Right, and they're not available to employees to purchase or anything like that. We have to get our best value out of it, and that's why we send them to public auction, so there is a dollar amount associated with those.
I think the idea, though, the question, like with the computers, I think it's a really good one. I mean, we do the same thing with real property, and that's, of course, a requirement by law that we offer it to other
another
local agencies
agency, right.
before we would go out to the market, to the open market on it. So I think we ought to explore maybe adding that to our policy to have the flexibility to be able to at least offer some of the, I mean, there may be certain things of a de minimis nature that you wouldn't want to, rise the level of offering it up. But if it's something that, that potentially they could use, maybe we could give them a first look at it before it does go out. I think that's a good thing for us to take a run at.
Well, I know the fire districts do that, and right now we have a DA's office that would love a different vehicle than the one that doesn't run, smells, and something else is wrong with it, and they have to drive that to court because it's the only one they got.
the DA doesn't drive his own car to the,
Well, I'd be in support of looking at this, at our surplus policy going forward. The one thing I don't want to make sure that we don't become is spend a lot of personnel time on something like this. So if it's an easy process that we can approve, but don't want to become a used car dealer and equipment salesman, or have anyone in the district doing
Well, you
that.
have
but
the
it is-
grounds for it.
No, and we don't want these grounds to become a used car facility, but no.
Much appreciated.
I certainly appreciate the Vicky's idea of, there are a lot of other agencies around that could possibly use these vehicles, and fine, they're not going to be able to be used for us for our purposes, but yeah, they might serve a different purpose for someone else.
Thank you.
And to follow that up, as far as the serviceability and the actual legal use of some of these vehicles, as we move forward, as I mentioned last week at the budget workshop, the new rules required by the state of California regarding certain diesel engines are going to pretty much make them useless. They'd have to be sold out of state. So people acquiring them would not be able to use them within the state of California. And as you see, a number of these trucks have significant mileage, and diesels is a big issue.
all right? We have a motion and a second, am I right?
Yes.
Any other public comment? Any other comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, general manager's report.
Yes, just a report. We in looking at our calendar for the next board meetings, we had anticipated that the financial analysis plan, the final draft of that document would be brought to the board for workshop, as you can see, on the 12th of July. That will not be ready until the meeting on the 26th. And so we feel that at a staff level that we can accomplish all of our business that we need to within the July month period by having one meeting on July 26th. So the request and asking and I'll, obviously not agendized, but working to the president of the board, we would look to cancel that meeting on July 12th as not necessary. I also want to note that we had a really good meeting internally in really organizing, it was the kickoff meeting to really organizing our grants effort. And, with that, the change in position with Joel's taking on the duty of grants manager, one of the first things we wanted to do was sit down with everybody who is involved with either pursuing or administering grants across the district that are working on those, and really get some thinking about how do we bring that effort together in a really more organized, focused way that can really utilize having somebody as kind of the point person on collecting the information and disseminating it and making sure we're hitting our time deadlines that we have to do throughout the life of grants and all that stuff. And so it was a great meeting. I really got a lot out of it. Jeff was there, and a lot of really good thinking, and I think it's pretty exciting where we could go with this thing. Obviously, we've been very, very successful at grants, and a lot of people, including Jeff, have done incredible work to make that happen. But I think this makes it. I really like the idea of us becoming very organized. I mean, this is really what was contemplated with that position, but. I just think that we can make it more thoughtful in, just like things, we had a great discussion about, which grants do we even pursue? Because, the pursuit of a grant in itself is an enormous task. And then some of these have ongoing reporting for 10 years or more. So we got to make sure that we go after the ones that really advance our highest priorities. And so there's some things that we're going to set up as part of that and really come up with basically a standard operating procedure for how we do this program from start to finish. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be really, really helpful to us. And as part of that, I've asked that the group bring it to the board, that we come in and share all that with you guys, and we get your feedback. And so when you want to understand what we're doing on grants, or why we're pursuing a grant, or what may be on the horizon, you'll know exactly where we're working from and the things that are guiding us in the decisions that we're making and the recommendations we make to the board. So I look forward to that coming to you in the near future.
I'd like to make some comments on that. I think that is an important thing. One of the most difficult things that we, in the past, when we've had difficulty, making progress with grants and the other thing, is there's no board direction. The board has to give staff direction, and by looking at things like is a particular grant, is it overprescribed? What's the likelihood that we're actually going to get that grant? We need that kind of information, and then the board should have an opportunity to know what's out there, and then to make and to tell staff what the priorities should be. I mean, certainly with your guys' expertise, you can bring those to us, but many times in the past, we've lost our effectiveness because the board could not make the right suggestion to direct our consultants or staff members to focus their attention on realistic grants and needs. I mean, just because you can get a grant doesn't mean you need it.
Yeah.
So I look forward to having that opportunity.
Great, appreciate that. Looking forward to that. And lastly, there was a mention of the old office site, and again, our ongoing effort, and has been for a long period of time, to dispose of that property. We were able to dispose of a portion of the property through the transaction with CCTV, and then ultimately the county being able to take possession of that to ensure that it continues to operate and serve the public. We still have the remaining parcel with the old office site. I just want to let you know that we are working with the RCD to try to come up with some kind of an arrangement that would allow them to gain access to that. One of the things that, as we mentioned about making our surplus property, which this is a surplus parcel of real property, available to other agencies, that with real property, we do that. We're required to do that. But when we started that process years ago, the RCD didn't exist, so they didn't get to participate in that. And one of the things that I think became apparent as, they were formed is they very much need a place to have, a storefront to do business and to, interact with the public and to do their work. And, one of the things that, that would be very helpful to us is when talking about grants, is when they have the capacity to be able to write and submit grants that would help us on things like, getting money to do fuels reduction in the watershed. So that's ongoing, and I hope to have that an agenda item for the board at the meeting on the 26th of July with that. And so just to let you know, that's still happening. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, board reports, information items, future agenda items. Director Underhill?
Yes. Okay, I crossed one off, and that was about my field trip, because you all heard about that or know about it. I was at the Board of Supervisors the entire day yesterday. I went on behalf of...
Did your car not start or something?
They talked and talked and talked. First of all, Blagan Road, 5-0, we got that repaired, or, approved.
Fine.
What happened is that the meeting that I attended, whenever I attended it, and they approved it, not looking at their limits of the amount that they could approve. The auditor caught them and said that was too much money for you to approve, and so they had to bring it back to the board and put it in a couple of slices. But they got a 5-0 vote, so we're good. And then there is FEMA funding for that Blagan Road repair, so that's, they're gonna take it out of one account and, repay it or pay it back. And so I thought that was, and they were happy that the room wasn't full, because the last time that appeal was made for the White Pines repair on Blagan Road, everybody was there and everybody got up and talked, and there were only really 2 people who talked about that. Myself and Tom Owens was there on behalf of the park, of the ballpark, so that was done. Another thing that we have to, I'm not sure about the knowledge of transient occupancy tax by this board. Do we all know that that's what's holding Calaveras County together? That's tourism dollars coming in. And so when they set up TOT, this is money that they collect from hotels and motels. They said 1/3 would go to the general fund, 1/3 would go to roads, and 1/3 would go to the Visitors Bureau. The Visitors Bureau is the one that brings all these tourists up to Calaveras County. The marketing that Lisa Bolton does is amazing. And they want to look at the 1/3 that they're giving to the Calaveras Visitors Bureau, because they're not sure that the ROI is adequate. So there was a big discussion about that. They're going to bring it back on the 19th and talk about it again. And I just, so that was another thing. And then they decided that they would, we have a bus going down to Stockton, and the ridership on that is not very good, so they've decided to eliminate that. So that was another big thing that happened yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, and that's why I was there all day. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I will surely want to share this with the rest of the board, Nature Conservancy. They have an issue on the Blue Revolution, and this is about water all over the world. And I'm gonna read it just as fast as I can, so I can be sure to share it with the rest of the board. This is called, it's subtitled, Rethinking Water on a Thirsty Planet. And we all want to know about that, don't we?
Did Governor Brown write that? Or?
I'll read it just as fast as I can so I
And then summarize it for us.
Anything else, brother?
No, that's all.
Director Thomas.
The announcement that the meeting on the 12th has been canceled is, I'm disappointed that I won't be able to be here with all you wonderful board members, but it does give me an opportunity to go to the East San Joaquin groundwater basin meeting. It's a little bit of a concern that going forward, that those meetings are going to be on a regularly scheduled board meeting day at 9 o'clock down in Stockton. But anyway, this one, well, I'll be able to attend it anyway. And I think that that's about all I have to report. Thank you.
All right. Director Strange?
Question, did I hear what I think I just heard, and that the July 12th board meeting is canceled? I'm sorry, okay.
Proposed, but most likely will.
Oh, okay, good.
The financial analysis plan presentation won't be until the 26th, so we can handle it in one meeting, everything for
Oh,
next
okay.
month.
Good, because I will be in a location where rivers flow free and the population of wild salmon are on the increase. Obviously, that's far, far away from California. Over in Ireland, looking forward to it. But I don't have anything to report from my district or what I've been doing, so thank you for the opportunity.
Director Adam?
I got nothing to report.
Okay, I just have a short one. We did have our meeting with the board chairman and vice chair. We did give them a copy of our response to their the band draft EIR, and went over some of the points with that. Dave, is there anything else you want to add about? I'm trying to think of our other subject items.
We generally, talked about some of the groundwater ongoing efforts on, combined efforts on groundwater management with all that's unfolding down in Eastern San Joaquin Basin. Just some of the things that we discussed before. Some discussion about White Pines and the bridge. Obviously, we very much want to see that happen as quickly as possible as well.
Yeah, they did mention also that their White Pines is occupied well, but they're starting to have some issues with debris, trash. So that's a concern that Mike seems to be going to get on top of. But anyway, I just wanted to let Director Radaman know that they've chosen not to have the meeting in July. Am I right about that? Yes. So that won't be, it's on our calendar, but I believe we're going to take a month off of that, unless something comes up.
Excuse me, and we have a finance committee meeting on the 18th? Yes. Okay.
All right, so that concludes, we do not, yes.
I'm just curious about, in your meetings with the county reps, have you dangled?
Yes, your name comes up.
Does it come up? No, I'm not concerned about that. But have you dangled the opportunity that they might have in kind of joining forces with Mia's group?
Yeah, we have. We did that several meetings ago, and I think that one of the things that we're really gaining from this is the reason that they're going after the TOT taxes is the county's broke.
Okay. Oh, well, I know.
I mean,
yes.
flat broke. And they're grasping, they're trying to hold their head above water this year, let alone, if they go through with the ban. I mean, anybody that thinks that they're gonna be able to actually police, this ban is, because they don't even want to include it in the budget. It'll be a multi-million-dollar effort, and it is not, it's not being discussed in a realistic way, but, I mean, without that revenue, the county is gonna have significant layoffs. And even to sustain where they are today, that there is not the money to do it. And, I mean, our county is in really bad shape right now, financially. So, I mean, that's one thing that we're we're learning from our meetings, and it, you know, it's just, it's a sad state, you know. I mean, for them to be on the bubble, whether or not they're gonna pay $12,000 to fix the bridge, I mean, good Lord, you know, that's a shame, but anyway. Okay, that concludes my comments. Next board meeting is up in the air, but it could be July 12th, or it could be July 26th. And we are not having closed session? No. Okay.
No, thank you.
So, meeting is adjourned.
We're not having closed session.
Oh, okay, oh, great. Ay, 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 ay.
I'll just keep it in here.
Ooh,